The first thing I notice is how her hands shake when she lifts the turkey. The platter wobbles slightly, the silver catching the chandelier light in a nervous shimmer. Around the table, conversation pauses for half a breath, just long enough for the tension to breathe. Daniel's parents smile politely, oblivious. My daughter asks for the cranberry sauce. I offer it without looking away from the woman standing at the head of my dining room. Her name is Emily Hayes. She thinks she's still in control. I fold my napkin carefully, one corner at a time, as she places the bird down. Her perfume floats toward me, faint citrus, sharp enough to sting. I used to smell it on Daniel's collar and pretend not to recognize it. "Smells wonderful," Daniel says. His voice cracks in the middle of the sentence. I glance at him, and he pretends to check his phone. He doesn't know that I already know. That's the beauty of silence. It can be a weapon sharper than any confession. The table is a painting of perfection: roasted vegetables, gold cutlery, fine china. I designed it that way because tonight deserves ceremony, the calm before detonation. Emily steps back, forcing a smile. Her hands brush her apron as if wiping away invisible guilt. She looks at me for approval. I give her a polite nod, the kind of smile women use when they already know how the story ends. For a while, the dinner moves as expected. My brother cracks jokes about the Bears losing again. My mother compliments the mashed potatoes. Daniel raises his glass, pretending his life isn't about to collapse. I watch him sip the wine I chose. The same bottle we opened the night I caught him lying about that conference in Milwaukee. He doesn't notice the tremor in my breathing, the way my heart beats in deliberate rhythm. He thinks this is another Thanksgiving. He still believes he's the protagonist. Emily hovers by the doorway, pretending to check the oven timer. Every few minutes her eyes dart toward Daniel, then back to the kitchen. It's almost endearing, how naive they both are. They think guilt hides itself in small glances, but guilt glows. When I stand, the room stills. My chair slides back across the hardwood floor with a low scrape that sounds almost ceremonial. I raise my glass. "I'd like to make a toast." Daniel blinks. "Sarah, now? We haven't even—" "Yes," I interrupt softly. "Now feels right." All eyes turn toward me. The air thickens. Even the candles seem to hesitate in their flicker. I take a slow sip of wine, savoring the dryness, the way it burns just enough to remind me I'm alive. "Every year," I begin, "we gather around this table to be thankful. For family, for loyalty, for honesty." I let that last word hang long enough for Daniel to swallow hard. "And tonight," I continue, "I'm grateful for truth." A murmur runs through the guests. My mother tilts her head, sensing the undercurrent. Daniel's smile falters, the muscles in his jaw tightening. Emily's face drains of color. "You know," I say, pacing slowly behind my chair, "they say a home is built on trust, but sometimes that foundation cracks quietly. No noise, no warning, just a slow decay beneath polished floors." Daniel tries to laugh it off. "Honey, maybe save the metaphors for later." I look at him. Just look. The same way I looked at him the night he came home smelling like this woman's perfume. He falls silent immediately. "Emily," I say, turning toward her. She flinches at her name. "Would you join us for the toast?" She hesitates, then steps forward. Everyone watches, confused. "The caterer? Why?" "You've done such a beautiful job," I continue, smiling with surgical precision. "It's rare to see so much effort poured into something so personal." Daniel's fork clinks against his plate. "Sarah, maybe—" "Sit down." My tone slices through the room. Even my daughter looks up, startled. Daniel obeys. Emily's lip quivers. "Mrs. Miller, Please," I interrupt. "No formalities. We're all friends here, aren't we?" No one moves. The clock ticks on the mantel. I can feel the collective pulse of the room shifting, confusion sliding into realization. The tension isn't hidden anymore. It's sitting openly among the dishes, steaming between the plates. I swirl the wine in my glass, watching the crimson spiral like blood in water. You know, I murmur. There's something poetic about a Thanksgiving meal. Everyone brings something to the table. Some bring love, others bring secrets. Daniel's mother clears her throat. Sarah, what's going on? I set my glass down. The sound is louder than expected, like a gavel. What's going on, I say evenly, is the truth. And it's been cooking longer than the turkey. Emily steps back, bumping into the buffet. Her hands grip the edge. Daniel stands halfway, muttering, "Enough." But I'm not done. My gaze drifts to the framed family photo above the fireplace, last year's Thanksgiving. Emily wasn't there, but she was. I remember the calls Daniel took in the pantry, the way he said, "Just 5 more minutes, sweetheart." I glance back at her. "Tell me, Emily, how long have you been catering for my husband?" Gasps ripple through the room. Someone drops a fork. The only sound after that is the faint hum of the heater. Emily opens her mouth, but nothing comes out. Daniel jumps in too quickly. "This is ridiculous. She's just..." "Catering," I finish for him. "Yes, I'm sure she's been very hands-on." Silence. His father coughs. My daughter looks confused, on the edge of tears. I wish I could shield her from this, but truth has its own schedule. I take one step closer to Emily. You see, I thought tonight should be special. I wanted to be sure everyone got exactly what they deserved. She stares at me, trembling. "Sarah, please." I tilt my head, curious. "Oh, you know my name now?" Daniel tries to reach for my arm, but I move before he can. "Don't," I warn. My voice is low, controlled. "You've touched enough for one lifetime." The guests are frozen in their seats, caught between horror and fascination. No one dares breathe too loudly. This isn't dinner anymore. It's theater, and I'm directing it. I let the silence stretch again, long enough to make every heartbeat audible. Then I smile. "But before we continue," I say softly, "I should thank you, Emily, for your dedication, for your creativity, for your service." Her throat tightens. Her eyes dart toward the door. She's wondering if she should run. "Sit," I whisper. She does. The room feels smaller now, air thick with unspoken words. I glance at Daniel, his jaw clenched, his hands trembling near his glass. He's calculating how much I know. If only he realized the answer. Everything. I raise my glass once more. "To truth," I say quietly. "May it always find its way to the surface, even when it burns." I drink. The wine is sharp, acidic, perfect. Around me, no one else moves. Not yet, because this is only the beginning. And as I set the glass down, I think, just loud enough for myself, let them eat in peace. They'll need the strength for what's coming next. The clock strikes 7. Outside, fireworks from a nearby parade burst over the skyline, muffled by the windows. Inside, the real show is just getting started. Before everything shattered, my life looked rehearsed, polished to the point of blindness. Our house sat in Lincoln Park, the kind of Chicago neighborhood that made people whisper goals when they drove by. White brick, black shutters, the scent of pine candles always burning. I curated it the way a gallery owner curates her collection. Clean lines, neutral tones, nothing out of place. I told myself it was peace. Maybe it was camouflage. Daniel thrived in the chaos I avoided. Real estate dinners, networking events, photos with clients whose smiles never reached their eyes. He'd come home late, loosen his tie, kiss my cheek, and say, "You should have seen the deal I closed today." I'd nod, pretending I cared about the square footage of someone else's dream. I measured success differently, in the quiet between us, in how long it lasted before he filled it with noise. On weekday mornings, we performed our marriage like choreography. Coffee, toast, Lily's lunchbox, goodbyes. The click of the garage door was my cue to breathe again. I'd spend the day designing other people's homes, soothing colors, perfect symmetry, while ignoring the asymmetry in mine. Every Wednesday, Daniel texted me the same message. "Dinner at 7? Every Wednesday, I replied, can't. Deadline. And every Wednesday, I told myself we were just busy, not broken. One Friday, I found a pale pink receipt tucked in his coat pocket. A perfume boutique in Wicker Park. The name, Lumiere Essence, was unfamiliar. He'd bought something called Citrine Bloom. I Googled it. Notes of mandarin and jasmine. I told myself he'd bought it for me and just forgotten to give it. 2 days later, he kissed me goodnight smelling like mandarin and jasmine. He didn't hand me a bottle. Late night? I asked. Client dinner, he said, already turning off the light. Simple, believable. Lies always start small. The following week, my phone buzzed while I was sketching a living room layout. A text from Daniel. Big week ahead. Thinking we host Thanksgiving again. Our turn to impress. Impress whom? His family adored us. My clients envied us. But Daniel liked performing. He thrived under approval, like a plant under sunlight. That night, over wine, he mentioned hiring a new caterer. A small business I met through work, he said. Young, talented, needs exposure. Let's give her a shot. Sure, I said without looking up. What's her name? Emily. Emily Hayes. It meant nothing then. Just a name tossed between dishes. He smiled. You'll like her. Ambitious. Reminds me of you when you were starting out. The compliment landed flat. I hadn't been ambitious lately, just tired. The next morning, Lily sat at the kitchen island drawing turkeys with orange crayons. Daniel scrolled through his emails. I watched them, trying to memorize the stillness of that moment, the illusion of family. You're quiet, he said without looking up. Just thinking about table settings, I lied. He laughed softly. You and your details. He wasn't wrong. Details reveal everything. When he left for work, I opened his laptop under the excuse of finding a recipe file. His desktop was immaculate. Folders labeled, calendar synced, no chaos. Too perfect. But perfection hides its own fingerprints. I found a hidden folder named E-Projects. Inside, invoices for E. Hayes Catering. I assumed it was business, until I saw one marked private consult, dinner reservation. The payment memo read, for your time. I closed the laptop. My pulse didn't race. I just stared at my reflection in the black screen, expressionless, like I was studying a stranger. That evening, he brought home flowers. White lilies, my favorite. Something wrong? He asked. Why would there be? I kept arranging the flowers. He leaned on the counter. You just feel distant lately. Do I? He hesitated, searching my face. I love you, you know that? Of course, I said, smiling just enough. I never doubted it. He exhaled, relieved. I wondered if liars sleep better after being believed. Weeks passed. The world kept its rhythm. School drop-offs, design meetings, charity galas. We looked flawless. People said we were the couple everyone wanted to be. Proof that longevity and passion could coexist. Inside, I measured time differently. How long it had been since he'd met E. Hayes again. At night, I started paying attention. The pauses between his texts, the shift in his breathing when he typed under the covers. He'd roll away, whisper something about work stress, and I'd nod, the dutiful wife who never asked too many questions. I wasn't ready to face it then. I just needed data, evidence, patterns. Revenge begins with observation. A week before Thanksgiving, he came home early, unannounced. I was testing napkin folds on the dining table. Guess what? He said, grinning. Emily's confirmed. She's handling everything, even the turkey. I looked up. So generous of her. She's incredible, Sarah. Wait till you meet her. I smiled. I'm sure I will. That night, while he showered, I scrolled through his messages on our shared iPad. EH was saved as event planner. Cute. Their chat history was clean, no explicit words, no photos. But intimacy hides in tone. Can't wait to see you again, she'd written. You make me feel alive. He'd replied, Thursday can't come soon enough. I stared at the date stamp. Thanksgiving. He'd chosen a national holiday for betrayal. Bold. Arrogant. Perfect. I turned off the screen and poured myself a drink. Ice clinked against glass like applause. Sunday morning, we visited his parents. Daniel bragged about the dinner plans, how his caterer had everything under control. His mother beamed. His father patted his back. I smiled, playing my part. "Sarah, dear," his mother said, "you always make everything so elegant. I hope you're not overworking yourself." "Not at all," I replied. This year, someone else is doing the heavy lifting. Daniel squeezed my knee under the table, proud. "See? I told you she's amazing." I turned to him. "Who? Me or her?" He laughed, missing the edge in my voice. "Both." I stored that moment like ammunition. By midweek, the house transformed into a stage. Fresh flowers, gold-rimmed china, linen napkins folded like swans. I worked methodically, almost tranquil. Revenge hides best behind normalcy. Emily arrived 2 days early for prep. I watched from the upstairs hallway as she carried boxes into the kitchen, smiling, efficient, unaware. She had the kind of prettiness that feeds on attention. Soft curls, bright lipstick, optimism that hadn't been punished yet. "Mrs. Miller?" she called. "I just wanted to confirm the menu." I descended the stairs slowly. "Please, call me Sarah." Her smile flickered. Of course, Sarah. The way she said my name made something in me settle. Now I had a face to the scent. We walked through the kitchen, reviewing her list. Every detail was flawless. I almost respected her competence. Almost. She gestured toward the dining room. "You have a beautiful home." "Thank you," I said. "My husband helped design it." "Oh," she replied softly, eyes scanning the space. "He has good taste." "Doesn't he?" I murmured. Our gazes met for a fraction too long. The kind of silence that tastes like recognition. She looked away first. That night, Daniel was unusually affectionate. He poured wine, complimented my dress, told me how lucky he was. I listened, fascinated by how guilt makes people generous. "You've outdone yourself," he said. "This dinner will be unforgettable." I smiled faintly. That's the plan. The next morning, I walked into his office to deliver his dry cleaning. On his desk, a gift box tied with gold ribbon, perfume, citrine bloom. A card beneath it read, "For Thursday. Wear it for me." I didn't touch it. I didn't cry. I simply turned off the light and closed the door. By now, the red flags weren't subtle. They were fireworks. Yet I stayed quiet. Because clarity takes patience. I wasn't ready to confront. I was ready to collect. Every secret deserves an audience, and I was building mine. Thanksgiving invitations went out with Daniel's handwritten notes. I added one more name at the bottom of the list, Emily Hayes +1. Her assistant, she'd said. Perfect. When Daniel reviewed the list, he frowned. "Wait, why'd you include her?" I smiled. "Because gratitude should be shared." He chuckled, thinking I was being kind. That's when I knew I'd already won. When your enemy laughs at your generosity, you've built the perfect trap. The night before Thanksgiving, I walked through the house alone. Every plate polished, every candle wick trimmed. The reflection of the chandelier shimmered in the window, fractured and beautiful. I imagined the next evening, the guests laughing, the aroma of turkey filling the air, Daniel basking in attention, and then the silence that would follow. I touched the edge of the table, whispering to the empty room, "Let the feast begin." The house didn't answer, but something in me did. A calm so sharp it almost felt holy. Tomorrow, the woman who wore my husband's scent would serve my family dinner. And when I stood up to make that toast, the world would finally see who was really in charge. At midnight, as Daniel slept beside me, his phone buzzed once. A message from Emily Hayes. "Can't wait to serve you tomorrow." I deleted it, turned off the phone, and whispered, "Neither can I." I found out the truth on a Tuesday morning, the kind of gray Chicago day that makes the city look like it's holding its breath. Daniel had left early for a meeting in Evanston. His jacket still hung on the back of a chair, pockets heavy with proof. I wasn't looking for it. I was looking for peace. But peace never lives where secrets sleep. Inside his jacket pocket was a folded receipt from the Fairmont Hotel. Dinner for two. 2 glasses of wine, 1 dessert. The timestamp, 11:47 p.m. He'd been home by midnight that night, smelling faintly of jasmine and guilt. I stared at the receipt for a full minute, then flattened it on the counter, smoothing every crease like it was evidence in a case I hadn't agreed to prosecute. My reflection stared back from the granite. Expressionless, precise, dangerous. The next clue wasn't hidden at all. It arrived through the front door, smiling. Emily Hayes stood there with a catering binder pressed to her chest. "Hi, I just wanted to drop off the final Thanksgiving menu," she said. Her voice was light, melodic. I froze for half a second, but I'd practiced my masks for years. "Of course," I said. "Come in." She stepped inside my home, completely unaware that she was walking onto the stage she'd helped build. Her perfume entered before she did. Citrine bloom. I didn't need to check the label. My lungs already knew the scent. She flipped open the binder, showing lists of dishes, ingredients, serving schedules. "We can adjust anything you like. Daniel mentioned you prefer minimalist presentation, right?" "He did," I said. "He knows me so well." Something flickered across her face. Pride, maybe, or guilt trying to disguise itself as professionalism. I couldn't tell yet. But her hands trembled just slightly when she passed me the page. I smiled. "You're very talented, Emily." "Thank you," she said. Her eyes softened, like she wasn't used to women being kind to her. "Daniel's been so supportive of my business. Honestly, I don't know what I'd do without him." Neither do I thought. That night, after Lily went to bed, I sat in the living room watching the city lights pulse through the window. Daniel poured himself a drink, loosened his tie, and asked, "You met Emily today?" "Yes," I said. "She's good, right? Ambitious. Reminds me of you when we first started out. When we were still honest?" The words almost slipped out, but I caught them. Instead, I smiled. "She seems eager." He nodded, oblivious. "She's got that spark. You can tell she's going places." "So you're her mentor now?" He laughed. "Don't start." I studied him quietly, the way he avoided eye contact when he lied, the casual tone he used to sell deceit as charm. It was almost art. He thought he was still in control. He didn't notice that every word he said was stitching his own noose. The next morning, I called my friend Mia, who ran a PR firm downtown. "I need you to find something," I said. "On who?" "Daniel." A pause. "Sarah, what are you doing?" Confirming a suspicion. Within hours, she sent a message. "He's been transferring money from the company account to an independent contractor, E. Hayes Catering." "Monthly payments?" I asked. "Weekly," she said. "Marked as consulting services. You want the statements?" "Yes." The PDFs hit my inbox like bullets. Each transaction time-stamped around the same hour every Friday, right before his so-called late meetings. He'd been paying her to stay quiet. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and let the numbness turn into clarity. Betrayal doesn't feel like fire. It feels like arithmetic. It all adds up. That night, I decided to see for myself. I followed him. He left the house at 7:40, dressed in that same gray coat from the Fairmont receipt. His phone buzzed once. He smiled down at it. Then he drove. I stayed 3 cars behind, headlights off, hands steady on the wheel. He parked near a quiet street lined with small businesses. Hayes Catering and Events glowed in soft yellow light. I watched through the windshield as he stepped inside and locked the door behind him. No hesitation, no guilt. I sat there for 20 minutes, maybe more. Rain streaked the glass, distorting everything but his silhouette moving past the window. Her shape passing near his, too close to be professional. When the lights dimmed, I started the car and left. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove until the city disappeared and the lake replaced the skyline. I rolled down the window, letting the November wind cut through me until I could feel something again. By the time I returned home, I wasn't the same woman who had left. The ache had burned itself into strategy. The next morning, Daniel kissed me on the cheek before work, cheerful as ever. "Don't stress too much about dinner. Emily's got everything covered." I smiled at the irony. "I know she does." He paused, uncertain. "You okay?" "Better than ever." He nodded, satisfied. Men mistake calm for ignorance. It's their favorite illusion. Later that day, I went into the kitchen and opened the catering binder Emily had left. Her handwriting filled every page: recipes, schedules, delivery times. I flipped through until I reached the back pocket. A small Polaroid slipped out. It was taken in my dining room. Daniel stood beside her, arm around her waist. Her eyes were closed. His weren't. He was looking straight into the camera, smiling, like he wanted to be caught. I stared at the photo until my hands stopped shaking. Then I slid it back into the folder and zipped it shut. Evidence is more powerful when it's patient. That evening, I called Emily. "Emily, it's Sarah Miller." "Oh, hi, Sarah." Her tone lifted, relieved maybe. "Everything okay?" "I was just reviewing the setup for Thursday," I said evenly. "I had a few changes in mind." "Sure, absolutely. I'd like to expand the guest list. A few more people, Daniel's colleagues, my family. I want this year to be memorable." "Of course. I'll adjust the portions." "Also," I added softly, "I'd like you to be here personally that evening, not just your staff." A short pause. "Me? Are you sure?" "Yes. You deserve to be part of it. After all, you've put so much of yourself into this dinner." She didn't catch the tone. "That's very kind of you." I smiled, unseen. "I can be." When I hung up, I realized how still the house felt. Not quiet, still. Like the world was holding its breath before an execution. Over the next 2 days, I studied them both. Daniel moved with the carelessness of a man who believed he was safe. He whistled in the shower, hummed while shaving. His phone stayed face down, but I no longer needed it. I had all the proof I required. At one point he asked, "You sure you don't want to oversee the dinner details?" "No," I said. "I trust her completely." He grinned. "See? You're finally relaxing." He didn't see my reflection behind him in the mirror, smiling at how wrong he was. The final confirmation came Wednesday night. I was in the study finishing a proposal when his phone buzzed. He was in the shower. Normally, I wouldn't invade privacy, but privacy ended the moment he signed the hotel bill. The message preview read, "Tomorrow's the day. I'll make sure it's perfect. Can't wait to see your face when you taste what I've made." I scrolled up. Their thread was a symphony of coded messages, menu metaphors hiding lust, schedules doubling as rendezvous. My favorite line was hers. "Sometimes I think your wife knows." His reply, "Even if she did, she'd never leave me. She needs the image." That was when I laughed, quietly, the kind of laugh that doesn't come from humor but from revelation. He thought he understood me. He'd mistaken stillness for surrender. He didn't realize still water cuts deeper than waves. I deleted nothing. I simply forwarded the thread to my private email and titled it, "Thanksgiving Menu." Then I set the phone back exactly as it was. Later that night, when he came to bed, he wrapped his arm around me. "Big day tomorrow," he murmured. "Yes," I said. "It'll be unforgettable." He kissed my shoulder. "You're incredible, you know that." I turned slightly, meeting his eyes in the dark. "So are you, Daniel." He smiled, unaware that I meant it the way executioners mean merciful. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake listening to the rhythm of his breathing, steady and undeserved. I watched the city lights move across the ceiling, thinking how betrayal always starts small, like a crack in glass, until the whole structure splinters silently under its own weight. By dawn, I wasn't sad anymore. I was ready. I got out of bed and walked through the house, making mental notes. Where the guests would sit, where Emily would stand, where Daniel would be when the truth arrived. Every position mattered. I'd designed this dinner the way I designed every room, balanced, symmetrical, deliberate. Except this time, beauty wasn't the goal. Justice was. At noon, I received a confirmation email from a gossip journalist I'd contacted through a friend of Mia's. Anonymous tip submitted. Title draft. Chicago executive's secret affair exposed at family Thanksgiving. Scheduled publish time. Thursday, 8 p.m. Perfect. Just as dessert would be served. That evening, Daniel came home with flowers again. "You look tired," he said, kissing my cheek. "Don't overwork yourself." "I won't," I promised. "Tomorrow, I'm finally taking the day off." He smiled, completely unaware that I meant from marriage, not from work. At midnight, I opened my laptop one last time. The photo of Daniel and Emily stared back at me from the catering folder. I dragged it onto my desktop and renamed it Dessert JPG. Then I whispered into the glow of the screen, "Let's see how sweet betrayal tastes when it's served in public." By the time dawn scraped across the skyline, grief had finished its performance. What replaced it was focus. Quiet, mathematical, almost serene. I stood in the kitchen making coffee, watching the steam curl upward like smoke from a gun I hadn't fired yet. Daniel's mug sat beside mine. I poured his first. Habit, not affection. When he walked in, still half asleep, I saw him the way surgeons see anatomy, a collection of weak points disguised as structure. "Morning," he said. "Morning." He kissed the top of my head and grabbed the mug. "Big day tomorrow." "Mm-hmm." He didn't notice my eyes following him like a scope. When the door closed behind him, I exhaled slowly. Revenge doesn't begin with rage. It begins with organization. I opened my notebook, the one I used for design sketches, and drew a line down the middle of a blank page. On one side, I wrote, "His weapons." On the other, "Mine." Under his, charm, status, secrecy. Under mine, truth, patience, audience. It looked unbalanced, but that was the point. I'd win using what he couldn't see. I called Mia again. "I need something timed," I said. "What kind of something?" "A reveal. Controlled, public, irreversible." Her pause was long enough to count as fear. "Sarah, you sure?" "Past sure," she sighed. "Then let's make it cinematic." At noon, I drove to a boutique downtown. The same one from the perfume receipt, Lumiere Essence. The clerk recognized the scent immediately. "Citrine bloom?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I'll take the largest bottle." When I got home, I sprayed it once on my wrist, once on the air. The aroma filled the room like memory. I imagined him walking in later, catching that scent, the confusion flickering behind his eyes. I wanted him to feel haunted by his own crime before I ever named it. That afternoon, I visited the caterer's prep kitchen unannounced. Emily looked startled but masked it quickly. "Sarah, what a surprise." "I was nearby," I said lightly. "Thought I'd check on progress." She wiped her hands on her apron, smiling with practiced warmth. "Everything's coming along great." I leaned against the counter. "Tell me, Emily, how long have you been working with my husband?" Her eyes widened just enough to confirm everything again. "Since September. He's been wonderful." I nodded. "He can be." She looked down. "He really believes in me." I almost pitied her. Almost. "I'm sure he does." I left her standing there, unsure if she'd imagined the edge in my voice. That uncertainty was useful. Fear softens judgment. Driving home, I rehearsed. Not the confrontation, those are for amateurs, but the performance. Every line, every expression, every pause calibrated for impact. My voice would be calm, my words surgical. The quieter the truth, the louder its echo. That night, I cooked dinner as if nothing had changed. Daniel walked in humming, set his briefcase down, kissed my cheek. "Smells good," he said. "It should. It's your favorite." He grinned. I'm spoiled. I met his eyes. You have no idea. After dinner, he scrolled through his phone while I folded napkins beside him. You really trust this new caterer? I asked. Of course, he said without looking up. She's phenomenal. Pretty too, I said casually. He chuckled. You noticed? I notice everything. He didn't catch the warning. He never did. When he went to bed, I stayed up labeling place cards. I rearranged the seating chart, moved his boss closer to him, his parents across, Emily directly opposite. Every guest would have a clear view of the fall. I wrote their names slowly, the ink steady despite the tremor underneath my skin. Revenge requires precision, not passion. Passion ruins timing. At 2 a.m., I poured a glass of wine and stood at the window watching snow start to fall over the streetlights. The world looked sterilized like nothing bad could live in it. I almost laughed. I whispered to the glass, "Tomorrow you'll see me. Not as wife, not as victim, as architect." Morning came bright and brittle. Daniel was cheerful, humming while dressing. You sure you don't need me to pick anything up? He asked. No, I said. Everything's handled. Perfect. I'll just stop by Emily's place to... He caught himself. To check the delivery schedule. Of course, I said. Give her my best. He froze, reading my expression, searching for traps. I gave him none. He left uneasy, which pleased me. Doubt was the appetizer. Once he was gone, I executed the logistics. Extra cameras hidden among the decor, small, discreet, synced to my laptop. If anyone ever doubted the events of Thanksgiving night, the footage would testify. I tested each lens, watching myself move through the frame. My reflection looked almost peaceful. That's when I realized how far I'd drifted from the woman who once cared about forgiveness. Forgiveness is mercy offered to the undeserving. I'd rather offer clarity. By noon, the house gleamed. Every surface polished, every plate positioned. A perfect illusion of celebration. At 3 p.m., Mia called. Everything's scheduled, she said. The article goes live at 8 sharp. You're sure about this? Absolutely. You'll destroy him publicly. I'm counting on it. Her silence lingered. Sarah, when it's done, what then? Then I breathe. Daniel returned that evening carrying flowers again, his last ritual of guilt. For tomorrow, he said, setting them down. I inhaled their scent. Lilies, not jasmine. Lovely. You okay? He asked. You seem different lately. I am, I said. I finally understand us. He smiled awkwardly. In a good way? In a final way. He laughed, uncertain, assuming I was joking. He kissed me goodnight. His lips tasted like pretense. When the lights were off, I lay awake listening to him breathe. My mind replayed every betrayal frame by frame until anger became choreography. I mapped the dinner minute by minute, the arrival, the wine, the toast. The timing had to be flawless. Around 1 a.m., and I got up, slipped into the hallway, and opened the guest closet. Inside sat Daniel's old briefcase. I took out the hotel receipt, the photo, the text printouts, and arranged them in a neat envelope labeled Truth. Then I placed it inside the sideboard drawer near the dining table, within arm's reach of where I'd stand during the toast. Everything has a place. Even justice. Before returning to bed, I stopped by Lily's room. She slept curled against her stuffed fox, unaware of the performance her parents would stage tomorrow. I brushed her hair from her forehead and whispered, "You'll never marry a man like him." She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. Back in our room, I lay beside Daniel, watching the moonlight trace his face. Once, that sight had meant safety. Now it looked like symmetry before demolition. I thought about all the women who swallow betrayal to keep their world intact, the ones who learn to smile while bleeding. I decided I'd rather detonate mine than decorate the ruins. Revenge, I realized, wasn't about pain. It was about precision. About reclaiming narrative. I turned on my side, whispering so quietly he couldn't hear. You wanted admiration. Tomorrow you'll have an audience. He mumbled something in his sleep and rolled over. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, counting the hours until curtain call. At sunrise, I slipped on my robe and walked downstairs. The table gleamed under soft light. I uncorked the perfume bottle and misted it once across the room, mandarin and jasmine saturating the air. Then I whispered to the empty chairs, "Let the scent announce the truth before I do." Outside, the first guests were hours away. Inside, the stage was set. Tomorrow, the feast would serve more than food. It would serve consequence. I turned revenge into a blueprint. Not melodrama, logistics, not fury, timing. The house would be a clockwork of small betrayals, each gear engineered to expose him where he prized himself most, among people who admired him. First move, witnesses. I expanded the guest list beyond family, picked Daniel's colleagues, his mentor from the firm, the woman who handled the charity gala where he loved to be photographed. People whose opinions stitched the world around him. I called one contact and said casually, "Bring someone from the office," as if the invite had been an afterthought. They RSVP'd with the eagerness of prey who think they're dining at prestige. Second move, documentation. If questions arose, I wanted proof. I bought tiny cameras, discreet, lens pinpoint, placed in the candelabra, the mantel clock, a decorative vase. They were small enough to be missed, but clear enough to capture faces and voices. I tested each angle, watched playback of empty rooms until I could anticipate every possible obstruction. Then I planted a second layer. My phone, recording on silent, kept in my clutch. If anything became contestable, the footage would not be. Third move, narrative control. I drafted the toast like a lawyer drafts a closing statement. Short, factual, devastating. No melodramatic reveals, no tears. A sentence, 2 sentences, then a pivot into proof. I'm grateful for truth, I'd say, and let their own phones do the rest. Timing for the gossip piece was synchronized with dessert. 8 p.m. exactly, published as the last plates cleared. I'd coordinated with Mia until she sounded like she was reading a script to the universe itself. I recruited one ally without announcing it. Lily's school photo teacher, Mrs. Green, was on the guest list because she adored us. I called her under the pretense of discussing a bake sale and asked a tiny favor. Keep Lily near you if things got tense. She agreed, eyes widening but steady, and sent me an emoji of a quiet thumbs up. Children are shields. Witnesses buffered by innocence break the other person's composure faster than any confrontation. There were quieter instruments, too. I borrowed Daniel's frequent flyer account, access gained through a password he'd left on a post-it in his wallet, and booked 2 refundable plane tickets in his name for work the following week. If he panicked and fled, those records would provide a paper trail that tied him to his own pattern of avoidance. Small exposures compound, and I wanted them to stack. I practiced my toast aloud until the words fit like clothing. I'm grateful for truth, I rehearsed. Sometimes the things you serve at a table are not just food. I tested 100 tonalities, bitterness, warmth, boredom, until I found the cold clarity that would slice clean. I rehearsed looking at Emily, then at Daniel, then at the room, so every face would register the same slow, inevitable arrival of meaning. By afternoon, I'd placed physical anchors. The envelope marked truth in the sideboard where I could reach it without leaving my seat. The extra wine bottle with the receipt tucked under it that matched the hotel date. The dessert menus with their hidden Polaroids sealed and stacked in the buttery light. Tiny, deliberate betrayals nestled among silverware. Dialogue would carry the emotional weight. Spectacle would carry the evidence. That's why I also prepped the phones. I left a note to the caterer, an innocuous-sounding line. Please remind Emily to check phones for messages. We will be sharing photos. It sounded harmless. It gave me the perfect moment for eyes to lift to screens as the article published. The buzz would be organic. The rupture would feel inevitable. When Daniel came home that evening and peppered the house with nervous energy, I let him think I was distracted by platters and place cards. Everything looks perfect, he kept saying, as if perfection could absolve him. You did this, I replied. We did this, and let the plural imply more than it actually did. At dusk, I slipped into my powder room and sat with the Polaroid under my palm until its image warmed. Evidence has a weight that deterrence can't simulate. I folded the paper like a letter and tucked it inside my pocket. For an instant, I felt a kinship with anyone who ever learned a truth that changed the geometry of their life. The feeling was not sorrow. It was readiness. Around 11 o'clock, I tested the backups. Emails queued, cameras synced, Mia confirmed. I typed the headline into a draft and watched the words sit there. Chicago executive's secret affair exposed at family Thanksgiving. Seeing it made the plan less abstract. It made it real. I slept for an hour at 2 a.m. in fits. Rest, that brittle kind you get before a storm. Waking, I walked the route I'd take when I stood to toast. I counted steps, rehearsed a smile, practiced a pause long enough to let phones awake and headlines land. Every sensation was catalogued: the scrape of my chair, the angle of the chandelier light, the moment the first guest checks their messages. At first light, I stood in the hallway and looked at the dining room as if it were a theater before curtain. The napkins were folded, the candles trimmed, the cameras hidden like watchful eyes. I felt no triumph yet, only a steady calm that comes from something arranged perfectly. I realized then, precisely and without flourish, that the plan no longer belonged to me. It belonged to time. I had done the work. All that remained was to pull the single thread that made the whole thing unravel. I breathed in and felt, for the first time since finding the receipt, an uncomplicated conviction. It's ready. They sit. They laugh. The turkey steams and settles into the center like a loaded prop. I watch the room move through its rituals. Forks, small talk, the hollow compliments that lubricate polite life. I wait for the moment I practiced. I lift my glass. Silence folds in like a curtain. To family, I say. My voice is soft. The words are clean. And to truth, a ripple. Daniel's smile thins. Emily's hand tightens on her napkin. Phones glow as people check messages, an instinct I counted on. Mia's article goes live at 8 o'clock. The first ping comes like a stray bullet. A cousin's phone chimes. Heads bow. Eyes skim headlines. Confusion blooms. I let them read. Let the gossip settle. Then I begin. I've always believed generosity is a public act, I say. We give praise. We give thanks. Tonight someone gave more than thanks. I reach into the sideboard without looking, smooth, practiced, and pull out the envelope labeled Truth. I slide the Polaroid onto the table like laying down a card in a game everyone thought they knew. It flutters into view by his plate. A hush. Sharp. Immediate. Someone swears. Daniel's face drains color. Emily covers her mouth. You see this? I ask, and the question is a blade. This is a photograph from my own dining room. No, Daniel says. He laughs, high and brittle. This is ridiculous. Is it? I flip my phone to the camera app and tap. The small screen blooms with the live feed from the mantle camera, clear as daylight. The TV in the foyer, an afterthought I'd prepared, flicks on automatically and mirrors the feed. The room watches itself on screen. There they are, grainy hotel footage I'd purchased, a timestamp, Daniel's face leaning into Emily's laugh. The sound is muffled, but the gestures are obvious. A man in a suit, a woman in an apron, complicity in motion. Daniel lunges for the phone. Turn it off, he shouts. His voice fractures. I won't, I say, because denial is not evidence. Many of you have spent evenings praising his work, recommending him for boards, inviting him to charity galas. I look at his boss across the table. You've invested in him. His boss's expression changes from discomfort to calculation. He stands slowly, the chair scraping like a verdict. Daniel, this is unprofessional. He pulls out his phone, types, and the hallway chatter drops into the room, an email sent. Within seconds, another guest's phone buzzes. A client calls, voices behind hands, eyes swivel. Emily sobs once, small and raw. People who admired her now stare like jurors. She pleads, "I didn't," but no one listens. The TV shows more frames, more proof. The dessert menus, another small instrument, are found open. The Polaroid tucked inside like a confession. Daniel tries to speak, to explain, to bargain. Words collapse under the weight of images. His boss clears his throat, voice low but flat. "I'm on a call with HR now." He doesn't look at Daniel as he says it. "We'll need him to step away until this is investigated." There it is, tangible and public. His role, his status, the thing he valued most, already slipping. A woman across the table whispers, "I'm canceling our gala sponsorship." A client's text, "We'll need to postpone the closing." The thread of his life unravels in live time. He reaches for my hand, pleading, stupid. "Sarah, please." I pull back. My fingers are steady. The cameras keep rolling. The TV keeps playing. The room watches as his world fractures. Outside, fireworks pop faintly against the skyline. Cheerful noise for a city that doesn't know a private life just ended. Inside, a man's reputation smolders. No lawyer yet. No courtroom. Just witnesses, proof, and the irreversible consequences of their own choices. He looks at me, panic raw and animal. "What did you do?" he asks. I smile without warmth. "I serve the truth," I say. "And it tasted like turkey." He makes one last clumsy move toward the sideboard to grab his phone. It buzzes, then vibrates on the table. A new message, from his firm. 2 words light up the screen for everyone to see. "You're done." The next morning, the house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. No voices, no apologies. Only the echo of last night's unraveling. Daniel was gone before sunrise, his things ripped from drawers, his shoes missing from the hallway. The envelope marked "Truth" still sat on the counter, open and empty, like a wound that didn't need closing. I poured coffee and watched the first light touch the silverware still scattered from the dinner that ended everything. There was no satisfaction, not the kind that movies promise. Just stillness. A quiet so precise it almost sounded like peace. By noon, the story had traveled everywhere. The article had been picked up by local outlets. His firm suspended him, pending review. Emily's catering page was gone, deactivated overnight. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't answer. Sympathy is a language I no longer speak. A week later, I moved into a downtown apartment overlooking the river. Clean lines, bare walls, sunlight pouring in without judgment. I kept one photo on the counter, Lily and me at the zoo, laughing, unposed. Everything else stayed boxed. Daniel called once. The voicemail was shaky, desperate. "You got what you wanted. Please, can we talk?" I deleted it. That evening, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine, scrolling through my files one last time. The videos, the emails, the recordings. Then I opened a new email window and attached them all to a major news outlet. Subject line, "Follow-up material." I hit send. Below, the river carried reflections of city lights, endless and indifferent. I raised my glass to the dark water and whispered, "Revenge isn't cold, it's patient." And then finally, I smiled.